And now, here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley. What is up, everyone? Welcome to Shaping Success Morning Coffee with myself and Robert Watson. It's a Wednesday.
Good morning.
Good morning. It is a Wednesday. We are going through the book today, and we decided to skip a chapter just because, well, we did. It's a little. For people like me, it's just a little too much.
It's a little too academic.
It's a little.
That's why I
too
stuck it in
academic.
the middle of the book, right?
Yeah, which is a perfect hiding spot for it, I would say. It's just kind of interesting. It's one of those things where I told you this morning, I'm pretty tired. I'm trying to figure out why, and it's life in general, right?
Yep, absolutely.
The cool
but
thing.
we went to
Go
a
ahead.
very cool chapter though. Distracted. It's a perfect segue to our normal lives, right?
Yeah.
We are all, trying to focus on what's important and let that which does not matter slide by, and it's tough.
Yeah, distractions are one of those things that we could get lost in a lot of times anyway, and I'm not certain what this is about, but maybe it'll help us kind of keep on track and not get distracted, maybe.
There you go. So yeah, the even the quote's great. You can't do big things if you're distracted by small things. And the idea is that, of course, I get up and run every single morning, right? Well, during my run, I have one ear pod in, right, the entire time. The other one I have so that I can hear my external environment, right? So one ear pod in. And so I was notorious for coming in, stripping off my clothes, not paying really close attention to where my other ear pod was in my ear pod holder, right? So I had this propensity to do what? But wash my.
Oh.
Right? Because again, all you have to do is be intentional about your actions. But I would come in and get distracted by whatever, right? And then I would look around for my iPods and I was like, oh crap. I know where they are now. They're in the washer. They're going through the rinse cycle again. And it's kind of a little bit hard on technology. So I went through a few pair.
Oh, geez.
But what I had to do was just.
Uh-oh. I don't know what happened. We lost Robert on the feed. We're here on TikTok, so we're okay right now, but we lost you over on Ecamm, so that is okay. We can keep that going over there, and he'll rejoin here shortly, hopefully. If you're joining, here we go. He's coming back here. He was washing it. That was the AirPods fighting back because he was washing them.
And they were mad, right?
Yeah, they're pissed off at you.
It's technology. You got to love. I just looked and went, I vanished. So I get really, really intentional about when I came into the house after my run because, I'm gassed, right? Sweating profusely, all that kind of stuff. So the first thing I do is grab a towel to be able to rinse off. But I have learned now to drop my keys, right? Take my ear pod out, put it in the holder, charge it, the step one, step two to every time I walk in the house.
Right.
And I had to get to intention so that I could make sure that I took care of the big things. And the big things they're $200 iPods, and you keep washing the damn things, it gets expensive, right? But all of us are into this, what has been labeled the automacy of being, right? Which is we do a lot of things on automatic pilot. And the reality is the things we really want to try to accomplish in life are not being accomplished because we're in this automacy of being or we're distracted. Because we like being distracted. It's like, oh, there's this new thing going on or something's going on outside, whatever it may be. But we like being distracted. And because we're uncomfortable with our lives, whatever. But the reality is you're trying to get to a place where you're living intentional. You're living with a little bit of discipline, right? And you're just saying, I'm going to do the same things over and over again.
Right.
Why? Because they make sense. Walking in. So when I started the ritual, right after I wrote this chapter, which probably about almost 2 years ago, I haven't washed them one time. Right? I'm very deliberate when I come in. right? I take care of it every single solitary time. I drop my keys, put my iPod in, take care of business every time, no matter what the distractions are, right?
Right.
Whether the dog's coming, whether there's phones ringing, it doesn't matter. I take care of the things that matter, right? And I take care of those tasks, rituals, routines, whatever you want to do, so that I don't get distracted. Because to be honest with you, on my runs especially, I get in my head
Mm-hmm.
because that's my time to be alone, right? And think through things.
Yeah.
And so I'm infinitely distracted when I come in, right? Because I'm all in my head thinking, whatever, I do a lot of writing, of course, because, I'm an academic and I wrote this book and I'm working on the next book. I'm working on a novel. So I do a lot of writing in my head. So I'm trying to keep track of the things that I've done, because the one thing you can't do when you're running is take notes. Really hard to run around with a pen,
Yeah.
plus the fact I'm soaking wet. So yeah, this distracted thing is our entire society. It is, we're trying to do the things that are important to us, and we struggle with that because, again, it's the little things.
Right.
You have 2 kids. It's always something.
That can be the biggest distraction ever, because you start doing like I'm having this flashback because it's been you guys know my wife's a nurse, and so she works 12-hour shifts, and they're so sporadic. So like she could be working, typically she tries to work days during the week so we can have the weekend off, but she does have to work weekends. And this one was basically almost like a hell week in my mind, because when she's off, when she's working Saturday and Sunday, that means that it's just me and the kids, and that's it. Like I never have personal time for myself, because like when she has a day off during the week, like today she has a day off. She's choosing to keep my daughter home, but sometimes my daughter has this summer program that she goes to, and she gets into there, and then my son can go to daycare, and then she can do the things around the house without getting distracted, right? Because the kids are not easy to wrangle, and we have that sweet spot where I have a daughter that's 10 who is, still kind of doesn't want to do the things that, she's almost a teenager that doesn't really want to do anything. And I got a 2-year-old who wants to get into everything. And so you can get distracted pretty easily. I'm outside trying to plant some trees with him, which I think that is very important to kind of get that work done. But then I'm always looking around like, where the hell's he at? Because he doesn't just stay with me. We live on 3 acres. He's bouncing all around the yard, which is, we got a half acre of grass, but then we have this big house that if he walks around the corner, you can't see him. And so my thought in my head is this, like I'm always picturing him just walking around the corner and having a snake in his hand, and he's just playing with the snake, like, because he thinks that's going to be fun, and it's going to be a rattlesnake, and he's going to get bit.
No, it's true. It's true.
Yeah. But that you can't get anything done because you're always like, where's he at? What's he doing? And my daughter, she's just kind of like, I'm not doing nothing. So she's pretty easy, but
my friend has her kids home for the summer, and so we're sitting there talking, and it's a business thing for her. She's asked me to help her through something, right? Yeah. And over the period of an hour, the rotation that comes through her office, right, with her 2, and again, they're 9, 10, 10, 11, but doesn't matter, right?
Right.
It's, can I do this? It's this constant rotation. Then it's the laughing, it's the humor, it's the ping pong ball, it's the whatever. It is constant, right? And It is constant distraction. And you begin to say, wow. One of the things that I brought up in the piece inside the book is it's this level of distractions also come with this desire to be connected to the world and the internet. And this is when things got weird, because basically people have gotten so addicted to being connected that when they were cut off, right, the respondents were unable to connect to the internet. They judged them and asked them things like, hey, did you feel liberated by being cut off? Because it wasn't your choice, right? It was just cut off. Well, about 10% felt liberated. 10% felt they were more productive. 10% felt less distracted. But as we started to go up, people were, I feel I'm not able to be in touch with my family. I feel like I'm missing out on things. I feel lost without it. I feel cut off without it. The largest percentage of people, when they were lost the internet, they felt cut off without it.
Well, it's insane because you think about like where we grew up, like where we were at. We didn't have these computers in our pocket. We didn't have a phone. We didn't have a screen. We didn't have all that crap. And I just kind of wonder, like, as kids grow up, how distracted are they really going to be? The biggest thing that I struggled when I was a teacher was kids having phones in class. It's like, you're at school. Your undivided attention should be with me. But my parents are worried about me. They don't know if I'm okay. My mom was texting me in the middle of school, and it's like, are you freaking kidding me? Yeah. We are here. They have handed you off to us today. Today, we get your attention, and they just don't get it. You take their phone away from them, it's the end of the world. And I don't know. It's a struggle.
It was funny because in my generation, what was the distracting was people were doodling.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. That was the big deal.
I was thinking of the spitwads, you know, like, I mean, we found things to be distracted.
That too. But they were literally, you know, drawing and doodling when the teacher was talking. And that was the big deal was, oh, I see you're over there doodling, right? In other words, not paying attention. And, you know, there's just certain things that people are not that motivated. You know, when you were talking about the piece you read out of the book that was for this week, and it was, of course, an academic piece on propaganda, right? And how our media works with China and all this kind of stuff. Not works with China, but how it portrays China. And it's actually really, really good because it's very enlightening. But the reality is that it's boring.
Yeah.
Right? If it's not your field of expertise, it's boring.
The thing that's funny about it is I was reading it, I was thinking about it. I'm sitting there the whole time. I'm like, this is what Robert used to do for a living. He's kind of a nerd.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. It was the weird thing. And you knew that about being in high school, right? And there were the athletes, right? And the smart kids and all this kind of stuff. And there were, I guess, a few of us that transcended, so to speak, who still had good grades and were still athletes. And so you kind of just didn't talk about your grades. Right. You know, you just went along and played sports and you didn't talk about your grades because nobody really, not on that side of the coin, wanted to go, yeah, you know, I just got straight A's. You know, I mean, that wasn't really a conversation item.
I was the guy who was probably hanging out with you so you could help me do my homework.
Yeah. The running joke was, of course, that there was the history class, right, where it was a mandatory class. So there was a lot of sports guys in there, right?
Yeah.
And they're not the smartest. And so consequently, they were kind of really asking me to cheat, or they were really actually copying my work, right? And it got so bad that before the test time, teacher would move my desk to the front of the room, right, away from everybody. Because she knows that it's not that I help them. It's just that I move my hands back so they can see my work.
Yeah, I was the guy that tried that one time and got caught, and that was the end of it. I couldn't do it because I couldn't like, you know, you always try to get that little glance over at someone else's paper. Oh yeah, that's right. This is, and then the teacher would look at me and go, "Do that again. I dare you. Because I'm gonna throw your paper away. That's what's gonna happen." Yeah. I got caught. I'm the guy who got caught all the time. I just couldn't get away with it. But it's amazing how that's kind of that dynamic that we had, though. No one talked about our grades. You kind of knew who the smart kids were. I had a couple classmates that I remember that were very helpful in helping me get to that. Like, I wasn't I was a terrible student. I was a smart kid. I'm still, you know, I'm pretty smart now, but I was like a terrible student. So I didn't really care. And then there was some stuff that I really didn't get. And if I worked a little bit harder, I would. But I was lucky enough to have some friends that would be like, hey, you know, I'll come over and I'll help you work that out. And it wasn't just like, hey, here's the answer. This is how you do it, you know, because that was really what you needed. You needed someone to show you how to do it so you could actually get it instead of just giving you the answer.
Absolutely. And it was funny because I was taking a grad school class and this professor, it was an economics class. And so, you know, pretty much nobody wanted to be there. I mean, the only people that wanted to be there were the people that had an economics, emphasis on their graduate program. So nobody wanted to be there. And so then it would be like, we'd ask a question and he'd go, well, let's work through the problem. And we're all just looking at him like, really? You won't tell us the answer and let us reverse engineer it? Okay, so let's do this the hard way. And I mean, I understood his point, but I also understand that sometimes you just need to give me the damn answer. Let me reverse engineer it and figure out how to do the problem, because that's the way I learn.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a different proposition, very different, but that really speaks to the idea of what we're talking about culturally too, because even in grad school, right, we're all adults and
Right.
everybody's phone was on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nobody was really paying attention to their phone, but it wasn't like people didn't get messages during the class, including the professors,
Right.
right?
Yeah, and it's one of those things that like you think about that, and that's the difference between college and high school, right? Like in high school, you need to know the information that they're like you don't know any information, so you're learning the
Right.
information as you go. In college, you have a choice. You may already know the information, and you may know the answer to the problem, and you may not need that professor, so they don't really care. Plus, they've got your money. In high school, they don't, so they don't really,
Yeah.
they don't really, it's you got to have more attention in high school. But I wish, you think about it, it's like paying attention to like math problems. Math was my hardest subject by any means, and statistics is a lot of math. And I was thinking about my biomechanics class where my professor was just didn't care. Went in there, showed you how to do the problem one time, and then just kind of went back and drank coffee and expected you to figure it out on your own. He goes, "Well, this is how you do it because this is how you learn." And it's like, listen here, dude. Not everyone learns that way. Some people need you to walk them through the problem part by part to figure it out, multiple times to figure it out, and then there are some people who can just figure it out. So it's crazy how that goes in college, where it's just like, here you go, do it. We don't care. You paid your money.
Well, yeah, and I can say from somebody who went to college, uh, 40 years apart, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm an entire biblical generation separate from my original class to
Right.
this last class. And people will ask the question, is it harder or easier? And I would tell you straight up, undergrad, it's much easier
Mm-hmm.
than it was when I went to school, because it really, when their expectations are much lower for you.
As an undergrad.
Yeah. Their expectations are just much lower. And again, the vetting process was very different because it was the top quarter of our high school class that went to college.
Yeah.
And half of them blew out in their first year at a major school and then went to a minor school so that they, again, because of the academics.
It's
If
funny
you
to
were at
think
a
about
tier
it.
one school, it was hard.
Yeah, it's funny to think about it that way because I never really thought about academically that way. I thought about sports that way, right? Like in
Right.
high school, we have, it's like 0.0001% of the athletes in high school are going to go on to play in college. And then you think about that, it's got to be even less of those college athletes are going to go on to the professional level. But now that you said that, like I really put into the thought the fact that there's people like me, and I was part of that the first time that I went to college. I didn't make it. And so you go to college, you pay for your first year and you don't make it and you just drop out and you go into the workforce or you go to a junior college or you go somewhere else because you're just not going to make it. And then that top percent keeps going and they're the ones who get the big high paying jobs or whatever, they get their degree and they keep going. But man, life in general is that way.
Well, we were sitting in an engineering class in a symposium, second semester of A&M, and this was in 1980. And again, engineering, right? Everybody is pretty well vetted to be in there. When the professor asked the question, how many people got their first set of grades? How many people are on scholastic probation?
Uh-huh.
2/3 of the room raised their hand.
Yeah, and those were the ones that raised their hand that were being honest.
Yeah, no, it's very, very true because the academics was extremely hard. They were not trying to make it easy for you. They wanted you out as fast as they could get you out,
Right.
right? Because they didn't want you sticking around because you were going to eat up space. So they were like, okay, let's blow him out. I remember my valedictorian in high school coming out of a composition class. Remember, we had to take English Comp 1 and 2.
Uh-huh.
She comes out of the comp class crying her eyes out. She got a D.
Oh.
this is a national merit scholar, the whole 9 yards. And she was
Yeah.
like, she was devastated. And it was like, yeah, they're not hand holding anymore.
Well, and that was kind of the thing. Like, I think back in high school, I took one class that was like, you could take the college prep classes or whatever. And I took college prep biology from it was actually one of my football coaches was the teacher of it. And he's gone now. He passed away. But I remember like sitting there listening to him tell us about this class. He goes, well, this is college prep. And I'm like, okay, so what's that mean? He goes, well, this is going to be just like college. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And you just think, because like probably that English composition class that you take in high school, even though it's supposed to prepare you, your English classes are supposed to prepare you for college, they're still holding your hand, just like you said. He did not hold your hand. Like, it was actually like a college class. He sat up front. He gave you, these are the topics that we're going to go. The only thing that he did that was not like what college was hand you over a sheet of paper that had like 5 or 6 topics that he was lecturing on that day.
Right.
Because colleges come in there, listen to your professor bloviate for an hour, 50 minutes, however long your class is. And then you're supposed to retain that or read the book that they charge you $300 for. And then he's just going to give you a test to see what you retained. That's it. There's no like, here's a worksheet. Here's an assignment, write this paper. I mean, like English class, you had to write some papers in between, but your grade was based on your score on the test, not that paper. So I would go through in those college classes and it was always like, well, 40% is assignments and then the rest is your test. So I would make sure that I got that 40%, 100%, so that I got those 40 points. And then because I knew I didn't test well, and I was able to get, not as good a grade on the test and still pass the class. But when it was heavily weighted on testing, which a lot of times it was, I didn't do well.
Yep. Well, it's funny because we're talking about education. We're talking about how we learn and how the different systems work. But we found ourselves in a place where, your maturity made you a better student, right?
Right.
Why? Because here's the deal. You were distracted as an undergrad when you first got to college.
Mm-hmm.
Why? You had freedom. You had all these new experiences and stuff. It goes right back to the distraction thing,
Yep.
right? A mature student walks in like this going, I'm only here for one thing.
Right.
I'm here to excel. And the other students are looking at you like, oh gosh, you're actually here to work. Yeah. And the other thing is I'm actually paying for it.
Yep.
And so you have a concept of value of money. All those things automatically limit your distractions, right? And your performance goes through the roof because you're like, I don't care about anything else.
Yep.
You
Well,
know,
it's funny.
it's
I think that you relate that a little bit better when you actually realize that you actually have to pay for it. Because when I went back, 12 years later, I was paying for it. It's different when you actually, like my parents weren't paying for it, but I got student loans, right? So I actually just paid off my first student loans and from when I went to college the first time this year, which is amazing because it took me forever to do that. Then I got a second set when I went back, but it's one of those deals where I was responsible for those student loans. I'm the one who has to pay them back. I'm the one who has to, so I'm paying for my education or I'm not, and that's the tough part.
Yeah. Good morning, Steph.
We've got
one of the
Bev
things
joining
that
us on in Facebook for the first time too. So we've got a lot of cool people hanging out with us. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Well, yeah, thank you. So this is really the perfect segue from what we're talking about with distraction because you simply are not distracted. Why? Well, the money has cut your distractions and you're more mature. You know why you're there. You also don't have a lot of time anymore.
Right.
Everything becomes at a premium. So you get in there on laser focus. And it's interesting because one of the things I close the piece with is with all this information and unfortunately all this distraction and all this connectedness, we really do, our expectations for the future are actually declining.
Yep.
In other words, when we look at what we expect for our kids, like my parents expected me to better the generation, right? To do better than the previous generation, right? I don't, because I'm college educated, graduate educated, I don't actually expect my children to do better than me.
Mm-hmm.
Really, they're really just going to do as well as I am. And so that's very different, right? We're not looking at the generational jump from the greatest generation, which was my mom and dad. These were GEDs, people
Mm-hmm.
that barely got through high school, very few college. So my generation became college. Your generation grew a lot. So as you start to get through this, you start to realize, you're starting to peak out,
Yeah, I
right?
think that, and this is, I don't know, maybe off topic a little bit, but I feel like we had that kind of great migration to the fact that everyone needed to go to college. The baby boomers
Right.
or not the generation before the boomers made it work. Like you either went to college, you went into the
Mhm.
workforce, or you went into the military. That was the big thing. And then they were like, we did these things and we don't want you to do that. So you need to go to college. So then they start pushing their kids to go to college. And then there's more going. And
Right.
then my generation was like, hey, you're going to college. That's the way it is. And now we're finding out that that kind of was a problem. Like not everyone has to go to college. And we're
Yeah.
losing out on some of that stuff now that everyone did go to college.
Right, and in its expense. And one of the things that I always tell people is that, and again, I have a 40-year separation. Was I spent what was it, $12,000 to go to college,
Yep.
and my first job was $25,000 a year. So I doubled my entire college cost in the first year.
Right.
Well, now you're spending $100,000 to go to college, and your first job's 50.
Exactly.
So it's
38
right, whatever.
38,000.
Yeah, exactly. And so you're looking at things and saying, why is this inverted? Well, the cost of college became infinitely more expensive. Well, it's not the only problem that happened, right? There's a lot more college students. So when I graduated from undergrad for the first time in the early 80s, if you were the lowest grad, in other words, you just graduated, you
Yep.
had 2 or 3 job offers.
Right.
Right now, you're seeing people actually struggle to get jobs. I had people graduating with me in grad school that I looked at them and they were good students. So they were polished people, all that kind of stuff. They were having a hard time getting a job.
Right.
And you just spent another, I don't know, $40,000 to get a master's.
Right.
And you're now what, $100,000, $150,000 in debt?
Yep.
And you still can't get a job?
Right.
So, yeah, very tough.
It's pretty crazy. So, well, great topic. Distractions are a very big part of our life. So it's always a good one. We will be back Monday to talk more about life topics, which is what we do on Monday, and you'll have to come tune in to see what we come up with. But thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for being here. Today's sponsor is Magic Mind. You can head over to magicmind.com/WestT20 and get a 20% off your one-time purchase or 40% off your first subscription. Go check that out. We also have Robert's book that is out on Amazon. Ars Victorious. I'll play a little bit of ad here, which I'm just going to say I'm going to play it today, and then we're just going to play it from here on out. So I'm not going to tell you that I'm playing it. But Robert, thanks for hanging out with us. And
Absolutely.
I should stop saying thanks for hanging out with us because Robert is my co-host. So we're still kind of in that transition, but that's pretty much what it is. You're going to see Robert with me every single day. So we'll see you Monday.
Take care.